aspects too. So not only do we just need cash if the bank's closed, then we also need. So this is very interesting, right? Because you don't want to overdevelop, but then you need enough smaller businesses around where people don't have to work far, but then they accept you to work already. Because then if I need cash already off the bat, I don't want to go walk all the way to Walmart. I don't want to go walk all the way to the other 7-Eleven if I have health issues. Then something gotta be close that's open at night, right? That's when it's interesting. Because then we would have to take a look at like New York. Why do things stay open that late? And why is it that close quarters? Because if you can replicate, so you would have to replicate in good faith and best interest, right? If not, then everybody's outside, and then we gotta have businesses close by that all can get money to the people fast, which would then be like bodegas that's right around the corner that can even be of best interest to just help people to say, oh yeah, I got money for you, but you need to work 1 hour. Then it could be like, okay, yeah, but then it has to be close enough, right? It has to be close enough, and then everything has to be open later. So it has to be open later for people who, don't have as much, and then they have to accept people. So then things cannot just be closed early if everybody's outside, because then you gotta replicate philosophy 1 times 100. So if Joshua Elijah Ford been putting that much points in on the board as an all-star, you would have to replicate philosophy. So then it's gonna be like New York. Everybody's outside. A lot of people need cash and money and resources, and then we need businesses close enough that also accept anybody for work, which isn't too far. So then you have to say, okay, but we don't want to build stuff, but then you're forcing that because you're not giving enough resources. So it's not Waikiki. It could then turn into that, right? Because then you need enough businesses for people, or then it's just a different island with enough resources. Because if you replicate philosophy, then it's too much people outside at all times, just like California, just like other places, just like New York. But then there has to be enough things open for finances to flow. If not, we're all just standing around outside, and security and police don't even know how to help us. So we don't necessarily want people that don't know how to help us. We want resources and funds and cash and opportunities that actually can be of assistance. So I don't have enough money and cash. That's why I gotta talk about it. So I need cash. I need constant cash. I need resources. And I gotta walk around the community to speak about it. Because then I gotta find business professionals. I gotta find people to network with. I gotta find hotels, apartments, houses. I gotta find clothes. If I had the clothing store and they put me on zero and seize all my assets, I don't have clothes. You know how crazy that is? If you own a clothing store and manufacture and they seize all your assets, now you don't have clothes outside. But you put clothes on everybody else's back. And then you're on zero with no clothes on your back. But you help put on affordable clothes onto everybody else. That's the craziest thing in history. But then you gotta be peaceful though, because you cannot let emotion onto everybody else. That's the craziest thing in history. But then you gotta be peaceful though, because you cannot let emotions or anger affect what somebody else did to you, even though you cannot have other people doing things to you, especially bankers, right? that would be illegal. But then if nobody's correcting bankers, everybody's outside like New York and nobody can get in the building. And now we need bodegas everywhere. And the hustlers, then you gotta put, so imagine all the politicians outside. You gotta put the money in my hands or else there's no foundation or flow or anything, which is crazy. But you gotta have enough money in everybody's hands to be outside or not to be outside, right? That's how you could then have philosophy by best interest. Enough money to choose to be outside or not to be in the block now. And figure out how to rerun the block in a positive way. So that's wild, right? Now you gotta run the block by not doing product sales. So we might have ran the block in different countries by product sales and by sales history, by shipping and handling, and by doing things from afar. Now we have to do it. Like, we used to do sales in the business, in the offices, in the stores. Now we gotta learn how to do business and charity outside. It's crazy. So that kind of networking, learning to be transparent outside at all hours, 24/7, when there's not businesses close by. But then they want to almost say it's loitering, but they cannot say that's loitering or soliciting because they put your bank account on frozen and the jail cannot touch you because you need medical help. But they would have to pay you enough to not be in jail if you have businesses. But then they froze your bank accounts. So you might have sold diamonds. You might have sold gold. You might have sold products from Hawaii to Canada to California to Idaho. But once they freeze that, now you got to figure out what kind of money collection can happen outside in the community if they freeze your bank accounts, because that wouldn't be good. So now we gotta figure out how to do it from zero, close by too, which is wild. So if there's no businesses close by, right, then that's a different case study that then you gotta practice as well. Some people go to the jungle and just, live a different introverted lifestyle to just avoid, certain people. I don't want to go to, I'm already in the jungle. I'm not trying to go deeper into the jungle. Because if you started off in the jungle, but then you went business professional with a bank account, you don't want it. You love the place where you are, but you don't want to have zero and go behind the mountains. You want to still learn business and learn how to get back on your feet again. Even if, you got to start with one cell phone. You got to start with one old cell phone. You got to stay by the bus stop. And you got to do it online instead. So internet, working, opportunities, creating, and networking, while online outside. So then now we have health issues, but now we have lack of sleep, right? Because they don't pay you enough to go in the house. You don't have a house. But you have health issues and you have a form of security, that's social security, especially if you did it with your work, right? Because then they saw you at work. Like, he was working for that much years. Every single year he worked, he could afford that. Yeah, and then they put you on that and say, nope, that's not true. Which, that then is not a form of social security. That's the opposite. They're supposed to be like, bro, that person already worked 10, 15, 5, 10, 15, 20, even 1 year too. 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 20. That person worked 100 years. Give them that much money already. You saw them already. Some people that want to work all that time, especially if you freeze their bank, right? Now they're online outside working too. Cash in hand, online outside working. We're not trying to just be, I don't know. Everybody has their own forms of work outside, but we're trying to take over the game again. But if we don't have the business office, we gotta start from the sidewalk. You see how crazy that is? If the bank doesn't give you the business office, we gotta build the business from the sidewalk. This is how state of Hawaii treats our individuals that are locals. The Hawaiians and locals of the state of Hawaii. We gotta start our business from the sidewalk with no house, no car, no apartment, no food. This is how First Hawaiian Bank and the state of Hawaii treats their customers. No food, no house, no hotels, no apartment, no accommodations, no cash, no money. This is how management of Hawaii and hotels of Hawaii, even the Bank of Hawaii, like to treat some of the individuals who already been working for years with the people too. So we love the state that we're from, right? Because that's the only place we were raised the whole entire time. But then once you put in work for the state that you were raised in the whole time, and then you see 10, 15, 20 years later down the line how they treat you, if you do that much work, now you gotta start thinking that plenty people in the state that don't actually have our best interests and favor, which is the governor, the different people in government, different individuals in Congress. If we send them emails for help, for opportunities, the thing about sending an email or asking is that it's not natural for people who are used to working, right? So then people who are used to working, who made enough, usually are the ones who give. They're not the ones that's used to asking because they already worked. So some people like to be more quiet, right? And put in the work, but then other individuals could worked. So some people like to be more quiet, right? And put in the work, but then other individuals could freeze $100 million and then the bank steals it. You're not used to asking people for $1. Donald Trump is not used to asking people for $1. Obama is not used to asking people for $1. Not even the Congress or different people who wear suits are used to asking people for $1 after they make a paycheck. After you make your first minimum wage, you're not even used to asking your mom for $1 after you make your first minimum wage paycheck. Shout out to everybody who's been tuning in. We got a good 10, 15, 20 people in here with us. Make sure the room fills up. Like, subscribe, share. We're heading back to the road. Maybe we should go to Deep End. you know, so we got one of the questions. One of the questions is, what are our thoughts from starting again from the sidewalk? It's not easy starting off from the sidewalk, from the block again, from zero. That's all I can say, is it's not easy. Even though we did it multiple times, doing it again is not always easy in smaller towns and communities. So I might have been used to, even though I'm raised in one community, used to continuing in multiple. So like a month here, a month there, a month here, a month there, and then working in multiple communities and shaking hands, right? Over here, this city, this state. Because if you're in a smaller community, there's only so much people you can talk to, right? That aren't gonna be the same along the radius. So that's not a problem though. But if it's a smaller community and we're asking for more donations, more charity, to just even have a reach, right? More power, because that's how we get more opportunities and resources. That's why I was used to, even if I gotta start over again, I was more used to being able to fly to different cities and states with the first the different Hawaiian Airlines. They had cheaper tickets for Hawaiian Airlines before, cheaper hotel rooms. Sometimes I got sponsorships. So when you gotta do that all over again, and you're more used to, I got sponsorships. So when you gotta do that all over again, and you're more used to, you don't have to say living a faster life is bad, but you're used to networking. So maybe you might have go to 4, 5, 6 different grocery stores just to see pricing, as well as just livability and just networking while being online, right? Might have go to 3 grocery stores in Hawaii, maybe 3 of them on Oahu, maybe 2 on Maui, maybe 4 in Houston, Texas. So maybe that's only in 2 weeks or 1 month. So if you gotta start off on the block again off of zero, that's sometimes when you gotta learn to change your mindset differently, right? Because then you cannot be used to changing your environments that often. But changing your environments that often might have your likability, your popularity, and your networking growth might have been way bigger, because then you might have go to 5 of them in the same community, but it might be the same individuals versus 5 of them in different cities, and then you can network, see different people online, and then that brings foot traffic to even your hometown, Kahului, right? So then they might see you. Oh, did I just see you in California? Did I just see you in Houston? Were you in Oahu? Then if I'm outside in Maui, now I can talk to you guys and say, ladies and gentlemen, I'm in Maui chilling right now. I need more resources, but I need it by cash and check. Crazy. I never heard that really. I'm used to Cash App, PayPal, payment processing systems. That's modern technology. That's since like the whole entire 2000s and .com boom. I was used to PayPal. I was used to Cash App. I was used to Venmo. I was used to regular banks. Now, I gotta get used to cashier's check and cash. Wild. I was used to buy me a pizza, all of GoFundMe. I was used to different payment processing systems. Now GoFundMe cannot even go to my bank account, and I gotta look for GoFundMe in the streets. I gotta look for GoFundMe outside on the sidewalk, which is crazy. And without just, because then people turn into prostitutes too, right? For cash. They turn into prostitutes. They just sleep with anybody. But we don't want to turn into a prostitute, even though I'm R&B and my music is global. So if my music is global and all the girls love me, I want to get back into offices with resources, with houses and cars, instead of turning into a prostitute. Because that's not what we want in Hawaii. We would rather have the state actually provide us with resources than have people, you know, just outside not knowing what is going on. So, yup, we got one comment down here. It says, shout out to resources, cash, and checks. Shout out to stocks too, but if I did that much stocks and it was, say we're a small community and I gotta start from the sidewalk. What if there was only one bank and then they illegally act like you could close somebody in a community that only has one opportunity for the bank? Then even if my stocks were incredible to fund the whole thing, the stock money wouldn't go to the bank because the bank closed down. So now in a small community, I wouldn't have Wall Street, right? So even though, you know, shout out to stocks, bonds, all of that, then we're saying that we want others with less of a record to act like they're Michael Jordan of stocks, bonds, and then we gotta act like we don't have loyalty to our original bank, right? So if there was only one bank in the community and they force us to freeze our assets and seize everything, we gotta start from scratch and then answer these questions. But then it is cash and checks, even probably gold if we find somebody who would want to buy gold. But we would think that would where we would take it to the bank, but then we would have to start from scratch if the bank isn't accepting the, you know, the cash or the checks or the stocks or the Cash App or the PayPal or Venmo. If the bank isn't accepting that, then we gotta start from the sidewalk, but it's only cashier's checks and cash. Crazy. So, you know, we outside. That's what we outside mean to the streets, because the streets might have had more money. Even politicians are supposed to be finding me right now. So politicians from across the globe, different cities, different states, different government, they're supposed to be locating me, because if one social security check closes, they're supposed to get to you the next one to have that safety. So then, you know how like everybody watches movies? It's the movies in the other way. Everybody act like it's bank robbers robbing. It's supposed to be the people with the money resources moving quick to help the people that's outside. So it's like they already work. They got $20,000. They're supposed to be outside. They already work. They got $20,000. They're supposed to be outside on the bike, finding the people that's professional that then don't have that. That's how they would then offer protection, right? Let me keep walking down the block then. Because then they got 50 grand. They could jump on a bike, hand over the backpack, and then it's a movie, because that's nothing to the person who got a house and extra cars and 5 cell phones. They can hop on that real quick, pull up with the backpack and say, we just found. That's what the army can do, instead of doing it the other way. They're over here doing backflips, this and that. But it's just the business professionals who make more can find the people with the lack of resources, and then there's movies that way, instead of acting like business professionals then gotta do Oceans 11, 12, and 13 all into one, just because they already worked in the building. You know how crazy that is? You gotta do Oceans 11, 12, and 13 because you already worked in the building. But they just don't want to pay you. That's illegal. So if you worked in the bank or even the state and then they don't pay you enough Social Security to live, that's when everybody start doing Oceans 11, 12, 13. But the banker's supposed to be running outside as the movie in 12, 13. But the banker's supposed to be running outside as the movie instead of banker's supposed to run outside with their 100K in their backpack and then just boom, miracles in the city. Not somebody trying to dodge this and that. So now I gotta look for new banks. I gotta look for more cash. I gotta figure out like how is the federal insured amount not actually in there when I insure my banking account. So once I start a new one, how is that money not in there to ensure that it's not on zero? So then if they put me on zero, how would I not be insured automatically to 250,000? Especially if my Social Security gotta have me not being as socially secure outside. Inside of the street. So now I gotta be in the streets trying to be socially secure to make bands at night. But how much bands can you make at night if everything is closed? So we gotta be online, right? So our online and our internet use, while we still have it, has to be a business and a store, or a business and service provided. So shout out to mental health. Shout out to all my real ones. That's why we outside late nights. Because we ask help from our doctor. We ask help from our lawyer. We ask help from the state of Hawaii. We ask help from Maui County. But now, we even put it on LinkedIn, YouTube, MySpace, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We put our accounting and routing number, but then the bank changed it once we put it out there to ask for help. So once we ask for help with our banking and routing number to make it easy to ask for cash or charity deposits, then the bank they locked and closed our account, which is illegal, which means federally that should be insured to 250,000. Easy. Because that's then not operating in best interest. They're operating out of best interest. So I would start off like that. I would start on the sidewalk as probably a legal team. And then on the sidewalk as a legal team outside, I would just start being a referee, calling shots. So the first shot I would take is Maui County, state of Hawaii. They owe me checks already because Macaulay Culkin or Richie Rich should never, after the movie Home Alone, then have to be outside. So if he do Home Alone 1, 2, and 3, and then they put him in a 1-bedroom and give him $50, that's illegal. And then I would start off as an attorney outside or a legal team outside. So then if somebody else isn't offering you that assistance as the legal team, then I would have to have all my offenses against the people that aren't offering me assistance as the legal team. So that's not me having anything against them, But then legally, I would have to collect my money against the state of Hawaii, Maui County, because that's where I'm raised, right? So if I was raised there my whole life, then I would have to turn into a legal team outside, is what I would think, if everything is closed. So then I would figure out, okay, so how would I be a legal team outside? Somebody said, I'll take care of you. Yeah, but I need cash, cars, houses, clothes, because I cannot be the only one outside, and there's other people outside too that need help, right? So if other people are outside too and I'm the only one with communications, that cannot be. So then I gotta figure out, okay, if I'm a legal team, that's against the state of Hawaii, that's against First Hawaiian Bank, that's against Maui County, because what they are the, if you were raised there, that's where your first legal offenses would be, because of compounding interest in the work that you have done. So each job and each place that you worked, if there's not able to if you cannot then work or you have to retire, your compounding interest at each job would be able to then have you in houses, cars, and able to keep you afloat, right? Even if, say, you didn't work there 100 years and you didn't make $100 million every year. That's probably the OG, probably maybe 500 million, the OG, right? Maybe 2, 3, 5 trillion. Some agencies have $3 trillion, 5 trillion, $10 trillion. The person is maybe 60, 70 years old. So then I would have to then start suing the state, the community, and that's 70 years old. So then I would have to then start suing the state, the community, and that's not in bad thing. That's just of how much support they have to give each person. So then if I just have a phone and then there's nothing open to work at night, then we will have to then be a legal team outside. And then every time the state offensive, foul, and flagrant against us because they forced us to go outside, then every time the police did something, that's where our legal team would have to get funding from the police, from the state, from the county, and then the compounding interest at all the jobs we worked, even if then the people lie, right? Because then they're gonna say, like, people feel like it's their money, right? Even though you worked, even though it's just a check that you can write, people feel like it's their money. But then it would be the compounding interest of all those jobs. Because if each place you work, if those jobs were more than $1,000, they wouldn't then be able to give you Social Security $1,000 every month. If you worked over there at every place was more than 1,000 every week, how could then if you work like more than 5, 6 places, how could they give you less than each of the knowledge that you accumulated, even if you then have to retire, right? That's how compounding interest could then work to actually help somebody. But then it would have to meet COLA, right? This is the cost of living adjustment, which is not just only 2% every year. That wouldn't get you afloat to then buy anything if they only gave you that amount. So they would have to give you way more than a 2%, which is like $200 or $100 adjustment. And they would have to look at everything you did at work and then give you a cost of living for that compounding at the bank. And then they would have to try to almost federally insure people that they do offensive, flagrant fouls against, especially if they're outside or then are forced to turn into their own legal team to represent themselves, which outside or then are forced to turn into their own legal team to represent themselves, which nobody really wants, but then they gotta do it online. is crazy. Doing that online is wild. Because we got to figure out our rent money. We got to figure out where we can talk stories and network all while we're on the phone around the whole community just to do it big. And all we're trying to do is stay afloat too. But it's different when we don't, sometimes we don't understand the best ways of hustle, right? Especially if we don't see the money though too. So sometimes we might use it just for marketing and promotion, but the hustle is just our media too, which is crazy. Good to see you, my bro. Yes, sir. So I gotta get back out there too.